My name's Ryan Bell. I'm 27 and I live alone in a small town called Maple Hollow, Indiana. This happened in the fall of 2023, just a few months after my girlfriend and I broke up. I was still getting used to living by myself. The house felt way too quiet most nights, and honestly, the silence got to me sometimes. To fill the time, I'd hop online after work and play games with a few of my old college buddies. It helped take my mind off things. One Monday night, I got off work around 8 p.m., stopped by the gas station for a snack, then headed home. I made a frozen pizza, turned on my PC, and jumped into a game. The weather that day had been weird. Super humid, gray skies, and the news kept talking about a big storm coming through. They even mentioned flash flood warnings, but they do that all the time here, so I didn't really pay attention. Around 11, things took a weird turn. I was mid-match, headphones on, when a sudden blast of wind hit the side of my house so hard it rattled the windows. My whole living room felt like it shook. I pulled off one side of my headset, and that's when I heard it. This roaring rain pounding the roof, and the house groaning like it was alive. I turned to say something to my friends, but before I could, the lights flicked off just for a second, then they came right back on. My screen flashed. I was still in the Discord call, so I said, "Did your power just blink too?" But no one answered. Then everything was cut out. My screen went black, the lights snapped off again, and this time, they didn't come back. The room was completely dark, not even a little glow. I couldn't see my hands, the keyboard, nothing. I grabbed around for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and sat there for a minute just listening. The wind was howling now like it was screaming. I figured maybe a branch took out a line. Annoyed, I got up and went to check the front window. It was hard to see anything with all the rain, but the houses across the street looked dark too. I assumed the whole street was out. I sent a quick message in our group chat saying, "Power's out, I'm probably done for the night," and then decided to grab the old battery pack I kept in the basement. It could power a few things if I needed it. Now my basement isn't finished. It's cold, kind of damp, and there's just one weak pull chain light down there. I made my way down with my phone light leading the way. As I reached the bottom step, I felt this cold gust of air hit me, like something had moved past. I told myself it was just the storm getting through a crack or vent. I found the battery pack near a bunch of old boxes, unplugged from the wall like always. As I turned around to head back upstairs, I thought I heard a soft dragging sound behind me. I stopped, aimed my phone light, and didn't see anything. Probably just something shifting from the wind. Back upstairs, I plugged in a small lamp and sat in the living room still holding my phone. For some reason, I couldn't shake this weird feeling. I always hated sleeping during power outages. It made the house feel wrong, exposed somehow. To pass time, I opened the blinds to watch the storm and scrolled through YouTube using my phone data. About an hour passed. Then I started wondering, if my power's out, why did it look like two of the houses across the street still had lights on? I stepped outside onto the porch. The overhang kept me dry. The rain was still going strong, and lightning lit up the street every few seconds. Sure enough, a few homes had lights on in the windows. That didn't make sense. I thought it was a full outage. I pulled out my phone to check for any local power issues, but there wasn't any update. Just as I walked back inside, I got a text. The number wasn't saved in my contacts, no name, just a random 10-digit number. The message said, "There's been a downed line near your area. Expect outages overnight." That was it. No company name, no official link, just that. I stared at it. Normally updates come from the electric company's number with their logo. This was just weird. I should have trusted my gut then, but I shrugged it off and went back to the couch. I started a video and tried to relax, but something wasn't right. I had this tight, uneasy feeling in my chest. That's when I heard it. A creak from the other side of the house. I know that sound. It was the wooden step near the top of the basement stairs. It's old, and always makes that same noise when stepped on. I froze. I muted the video and listened. Nothing. I grabbed my phone again and slowly walked over. The hallway was pitch black and my little phone light barely cut through it. When I turned the corner, my stomach dropped. The basement door was wide open. I never leave that door open. Never. Walked up and peeked down the steps, shining the light as far as it would go. I couldn't see anything, but I also wasn't going to take any chances. There was no way I was going down there in the dark. I gently pushed the door shut and stood there, heart pounding. Suddenly, boom, 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 the loudest footsteps came, charging up the stairs. The door shook on its hinges. I panicked and threw my whole weight against it. Just as I did, bang, whoever was down there slammed into the other side. They kept hitting it, ramming their shoulder into it, trying to break through. The door didn't even have a lock. It was just a regular interior door. I held it shut with everything I had. With one hand, I fumbled to unlock my phone and dialed 911. The moment I hit the call, the pounding stopped. Silence. Then I heard slow, steady footsteps going back down the stairs. I didn't wait. I ran to the front door, threw it open, and sprinted to my car. I sat across the street, engine running, eyes locked on the house. I waited 10 minutes, maybe more. I didn't see anyone come out. When the police arrived, they searched the place top to bottom. No one was inside. But the back door was wide open, swinging in the wind. I told them about the text I got, and after checking with the power company, they confirmed it didn't come from them. The number was just a regular personal number. Whoever broke into my house, they had my phone number. They knew I'd go check outside, and they wanted me to believe the power was out because of the storm. But there was no outage. They had turned off my power from the breaker in the basement. They were already inside. That text was meant to stop me from going down there and discovering what they were doing. We never found out who it was. The number was a burner, untraceable. No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry, and nothing was stolen. But someone had planned it out. They watched my house. They picked the perfect moment during a storm. They wanted me alone and confused. They were targeting me. I've since moved. I couldn't sleep in that house after what happened. I still check every closet before bed, and I'll never ever ignore that creepy gut feeling again. Because now I know, sometimes when the power goes out, it's not just the storm you should be worried about. It's who might be waiting for you in the dark. It was the summer of 2019 when my cousin Jake and I decided to go camping. We were both 19 and thought we were ready for something more adventurous than our usual weekend trips. Up until then, we'd only camped at regular campgrounds, ones with bathrooms, maps, and plenty of other people. But this time we wanted to really rough it, like the stuff you see in movies. Just us, the trees, and no one else around. We spent a week looking online for a spot and finally found one deep in the woods of Oregon. The place had almost no reviews, just 2 blurry photos that showed a small clearing on a hill. It was a 3-hour drive from our town and then a 4-hour hike to the site. That was perfect, far enough away that it felt like a real escape. We packed up our gear, food for 3 days, and hit the road early in the morning. The drive was quiet, and the deeper we got into the forest, the fewer cars we saw. Eventually, we turned off onto a dirt road that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Trees had started to grow into the path, and fallen branches crunched under our tires. At the end of the road was a small dirt patch just big enough to park the car. Nobody else was there. We grabbed our backpacks and started walking. The trail looked okay at first, but after a while it got harder to follow. Grass and weeds had grown over most of it, and some parts were so narrow we had to push through thick bushes. We kept going, even though it felt like the trail was disappearing under our feet. I remember joking, "If we die out here, this is exactly how it would start." It was mid-afternoon when we reached the spot. It was just a patch of grass on top of a small hill, but it gave us a nice view of the forest. There was no trash, no fire pit, no footprints, nothing to show that anyone had been there in a long time. We set up our tents and unpacked. Jake took a bit longer than me, so while he was still organizing his stuff, I walked over to the edge of the hill to check out the view. That's when I saw something move down below in the trees. At first I thought it was an animal, but then I realized it was people. I could barely make out their shapes through the trees. 4 or 5 figures walking in a line, slowly moving between the trunks. They weren't on any trail I could see, just walking straight through the woods like they knew where they were going. I called out to Jake to come look, but by the time he got to me, they were gone. It was like they vanished into the trees. We tried to laugh it off, figuring maybe it was a group of hikers or hunters. Still, something about it felt strange. We didn't hear them talking, no backpacks, no bright clothing, just dark figures slipping between trees in complete silence. We spent the rest of the afternoon just hanging out, talking, and roasting marshmallows over a small fire we built. As the sun went down, the forest got really quiet. It was peaceful at first, with only the crackling of the fire and some bugs chirping in the distance. Then we heard voices. They were quiet at first, almost like whispers. But we could tell there were a few of them. They weren't yelling or laughing, just talking. Calm, slow, steady voices coming from somewhere out in the woods. It was impossible to tell what they were saying or even what language it was. And they didn't seem to be moving closer or farther away. They just stayed in one place. We stared out into the dark, trying to figure out where the voices were coming from. Then, out of nowhere, they stopped. Not slowly fading away, just stopped. Everything went still. No wind. No bugs. Just silence. And then we heard footsteps. Just one person walking. Crunch. 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 A man stepped out from the trees into the light of our campfire. He had a red baseball cap, long black hair that looked greasy, and this weirdly wide smile on his face. His eyes didn't seem right, like he was trying too hard to look friendly. "Hey," he said. "Either of you know where the trail is around here? I've been looking for a while." I pointed back toward where we came from. "Yeah, it's that way," I said. He didn't move, just stood there smiling. So I asked, "Were you with the people we saw earlier?" His smile faded for half a second, just long enough to notice. Then it came back. "I didn't know there were other people out here," he said. "I've just been hiking alone, would have asked them for directions if I saw them." He looked behind him like he was trying to see what we were looking at, but something about his answer didn't sit right. Jake and I both knew he had to have come from the same spot where we heard those voices. There's no way he didn't hear them too. He gave us a small nod and walked off down the trail. We watched until he disappeared into the trees. The second he was gone, Jake looked at me and said, "He's lying, that guy's not alone." I nodded. "I know." We sat around the fire for another 30 minutes just trying to figure out what was going on. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe there were other campers and the guy really didn't see them. But why lie? And why come out of the woods at night, by himself with no flashlight? The worst part was the feeling. It felt like we were being watched, like someone or several someones was standing just outside the reach of the firelight, staring at us. I kept turning around, shining my flashlight into the woods, but there was nothing there. Finally, Jake said, "Should we just leave?" "Yeah," I answered right away. We packed everything in a rush. The fire was out, our bags were on, and we were about to head to the trail when we heard it. One single footstep behind us. We froze. I turned on my flashlight and pointed it toward the sound. There he was, that same man, red hat and all, standing just a few feet away. He wasn't walking. He was just standing there staring at us. His mouth slowly curled into that same too wide smile. I clicked off the light and yelled, "Run!" We ran as fast as we could down the trail. Behind us we could hear footsteps, more than one. Fast ones. Some were behind us, others off to the sides, crashing through the trees like they were trying to cut us off. I didn't dare look back. After what felt like forever, the sound started to fade. We kept running until we finally saw the edge of the dirt road. The car was still there. We jumped in, locked the doors, and drove off, hearts pounding so loud we could barely hear anything else. We didn't say much on the drive home. There were no jokes, no music, nothing. It's been years since that night. We've never gone camping again, and honestly, I don't think we ever will. Sometimes I still wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed one more night, or if we hadn't run fast enough. I don't know who or what was out there. But I know this, they weren't just hikers, and that guy wasn't lost. He was waiting. This happened in the fall of 2019. My name's Jake, and I was 26 at the time. I had been living away from home for a while, going to college in a different state. I'd just gotten out of a long, messy breakup, and I needed a break from everything. So when we had a long weekend off from classes, I decided to take a road trip to visit my older brother, Matt, who lived across the state in a small town called Rose Pine. Flying would have been quicker, but I liked being on the road. It gave me time to clear my head. Plus, I had a beat-up old truck that I actually liked driving, even if the radio barely worked. I left early Friday morning, around 6 a.m. The weather was cool, and the roads were mostly empty. I didn't plan my trip down to the minute or anything. I just knew I'd stop somewhere halfway and crash for the night before finishing the drive the next day. I drove for hours, only stopping to stretch, grab some fast food, and fill up my gas tank. Around 8 p.m., I was feeling tired and figured I should start looking for a place to sleep. I pulled into a gas station in the middle of nowhere, just one of those quiet, lonely spots off the highway with flickering lights and not much around. Pulled out my phone and searched for a nearby motel. There weren't many options. The closest one was about 10 minutes away, behind the gas station down a narrow road. The place was called the Valley View Inn. Never heard of it before, but I wasn't in the mood to keep driving, so I went for it. The road leading there was weird. No streetlights, lots of overgrown trees, and the pavement looked cracked and forgotten. I didn't see any cars, just dark woods on both sides. I started to feel a little uneasy, but I told myself it was probably just because I was tired. After a few minutes, I saw the motel. It looked really old, like it hadn't been updated since the 70s. The sign was missing a few letters, and there were only 2 cars in the parking lot. One of them looked like it hadn't moved in years. I figured it would be fine for one night. I parked, grabbed my backpack, and went inside. The lobby was quiet and dim. No music, no TV, nothing. Just silence. The walls were yellowed, and there was a weird smell, kind of like old carpet and cleaning spray. I stood at the front desk, waiting. After a minute or so, a woman came out from the back. She looked surprised to see me, like she wasn't expecting anyone. She gave me a room at the very end of the hallway. I thanked her, got the key, and headed down. The hallway was long and dark. Some of the lights were flickering, and I swear, I saw a shadow move at the far end, but when I looked again, nothing was there. The room was tiny and plain. One bed, a small table, a worn-out couch, and a lamp with a busted shade. I didn't even bother unpacking. I just laid down on the couch with my phone and started scrolling through videos to relax. I must have fallen asleep without meaning to. Woke up to a loud knock on the door. It was sharp and sudden. Bam, bam, bam. My eyes snapped open and I sat up fast, totally confused. I looked at the clock. It was 11 p.m. I walked over and opened the door. No one was there. I stepped out and looked both ways. The hallway was empty and silent. Not a sound. I waited for a bit, thinking maybe someone was playing a prank or got the wrong door. But after about 30 seconds, I went back inside, still feeling a little off. I tried to brush it off, took a quick shower, locked the door tight, and got into bed. I set my alarm for 8 a.m. and hoped I'd sleep better the rest of the night. But around 3 a.m. it happened again. The banging was even louder this time. I shot up, heart racing. I ran to the door and opened it fast. Again. Nobody. I stood there, breathing heavy, trying to figure out what was going on. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. All the other room doors on the hallway were wide open, every single one, and there were no lights on in any of them. Just pitch black inside. I didn't hear anyone. No voices, no footsteps, just the sound of the wind outside. At that point, I was too creeped out to ignore it. I walked down the hall to the front desk. The woman was still there, reading something behind the counter. I told her someone kept knocking on my door and asked if she had seen anything on the cameras. She gave me this confused look, like she didn't know what I was talking about. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You're the only guest. Checked in tonight?" I just stared at her. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded. "Positive." I slowly walked back to my room, heart pounding harder with every step. I locked the door again, checked every corner of the room, then sat on the edge of the bed, not sure what to do next. I decided to grab my phone and turn the flashlight on, just to make sure I didn't miss anything in the room. As soon as I turned, on the screen the light lit up the far corner near the closet, and I saw him. A man, standing there, not moving, just staring at me. I froze. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. He didn't say anything. He didn't even blink. I backed up slowly toward the door and fumbled with the locks. The second I started turning the knob, I heard him rush at me. His footsteps were fast, heavy, and getting louder. I yanked the door open and ran. I didn't look back until I reached the front desk. The woman jumped when she saw me, but her eyes widened as she looked past me. The man was right behind me. Then, just like that, he turned and ran out the door into the night. No car, no sound. He just disappeared into the darkness. The woman was pale. She said she had no idea who he was and again told me that no one else was staying at the motel. She called the police and they came about 15 minutes later. They checked the security cameras, but there were only 2 working ones, one in the lobby and one outside. The only thing they could tell for sure was that while I was at the front desk the first time, someone had slipped into my room. We don't know who he was or what he wanted. He didn't take anything. He didn't try to talk. He just watched. I didn't stay the night. I grabbed my stuff and drove straight out of there. I didn't care how tired I was. I wasn't closing my eyes in that place again. To this day, I still don't know what really happened that night. But I'll never forget the feeling of someone being in the room with me, hidden in the shadows, just watching, waiting. It's the creepiest thing I've ever lived through, and I hope I never experience anything like it again.